white girl is doing like that. 1970? Yeah. That was a big time for white folks. Boy, that was really, they said they, oh, okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala khairul mursaleen. Muhammadin and Nabi al-Ummi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd, yaqulu Allahu ta'ala fil Quran al-Kareem. Inna Allaha wa malaikatuhu yusalluna ala nabi. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu tasliman. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Maulana Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. I had just mentioned that the reason we postponed the program for today, that we was going to have today in naming our center and doing all of those types of, there's another reason we postponed it. If we remember the subject of leaderless resistance, okay, this is a part of a delay, and its delay is wonderful. I had an idea several days ago. They shot another 2 people. One brother got killed on a motorbike down here, and so I came up with the idea of presenting a book that I hadn't written, but I had been given the opportunity to review this book. And in this book, the review would be in contrast to our idea, not only of strategic management under conditions of repression, but also nonviolent resistance. Nonviolent resistance is our official position. And alternative resistance, that means what we have now is trying to alter their direction, where the institutions that exist right now, the churches, the masjid, the synagogue, can all work to, like they all say, make America great, not a great again. It ain't never been great. It's never been great. And to build back better, boy, I'm telling you. Anyway, to make America the good. Technically, that's our goal, Lynn. That's what we're about. But in this review of this book, I would be pretending to review the book, but I would be given an alternative in this book. I would be given an alternative, and the alternative goes simply like this. It relates back to leaderless resistance. That the suggestions would be that you will not gain any respect from the system until you demand it. And the best way you can demand respect right now is, number one, all the organizations, all of them, all the gangs, everybody that's killing each other, number one, cease and desist. Cease and desist. Because we know how important all these gangs are. Of course, they're infiltrated and everything by now, but no problem. And the thing that would have been suggested in this book would be form teams in the United States of snipers. You practice sniping, and you snipe at targets. You hit them, then you just go about your business. You wait a year, 2 years, 3 years, and if everybody's doing that, and they're watching, they're monitoring the media, monitor what they say, don't react to nothing. You create psychological confusion in America. No matter who they arrest, no matter what they do, you don't do nothing. First of all, they're not going to arrest you. You're the one that did it, and they know, and you have not talked to anybody. You got a maximum of 3 people that you work with. Maximum. And there's a criteria. You grew up with them. You went to elementary school with them. Y'all played in the park together. Even you was in the sandbox. It ain't nobody that you happened to meet 5 years ago, right? Not that this is going to eliminate, but for your team is a maximum of 3. And your job is to acquire weaponry and to practice hitting the target, no bigger than the head. And if you miss the head or the person go down, you shoot the lower body below the bulletproof vest, right? So if you're shooting right below the navel, you're going to hit vital organs down there. And you just keep shooting till that person is gone. And then you're going about your business. You don't talk to nobody in your center, in your gang, in your movement, and this could be done by all Americans of a certain persuasion. The idea is to create awe and respect. You're going to pull back. Now, they're going to go running around and act like we arrested so many people. You'll know that they arrested the wrong people. You won't go down and try to get them out of jail or do nothing. You got years and years for this to play out. You see what I mean? This is the long range. You hit one of them, and then you go about your business. Okay? This catches on. Somebody else going to hit it. No matter how intact, no matter how loose they are, you're not going to hit no more than one person per year. And then if copycats get in it and they loose and they don't follow the instructions, leaderless resistance, they're following the instruction. They're being educated and trained. They're following instruction. Do this, and then study what the media says, what the police does, what everybody does, and then you're going up high as a ladder as you can get. That would be people that's running around technically shooting you, bad mayors, Congress people, far as you can get where it's safe. You want to be safe. Now, police driving down the street by itself is a safe target. If you monitor everybody's behavior, if you follow their behavior, if you basically consistently monitor their behavior, they got a behavior pattern that they follow. They go to a 7-Eleven at a certain time every day or around that time. There's places that you can place yourself, right? And pop, 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 no more than 2. Because when this go on, out of the 3, 2 of you choose who's gonna do it, do whatever you do, and you leave the 3rd one out. No matter what happened, the 3rd one is to monitor everything. And they got years to move. Even if you get caught, you got years to move. They got a trial, they got this, they got that. Don't worry, you got time to do stuff. It ain't no hurry. And also, the psychological damage it does, because as a respect thing, they have been shooting black people in the head, in the back, 8 times, 10 times, 41 times, all kind of times. All they want. And they're not going to change that behavior pattern. The only way to affect them is you have to raise the cost. You have to raise the cost for them. After 9 or 10 of them been hit across the country and ain't nobody arrested, ain't nothing, you know what I mean? They done did it so that there's no evidence. And anybody they arrest, they're just doing it. You know, they're just arresting them. They're putting it on them. And you know that because you know what you did. You know they don't have it, and you monitoring everything they say about them. But you got months and years to respond. So that was one of the alternatives that we was going to teach on. But it is something for delay. And moving forward, you're always challenged to alter your behavior. To alter your behavior. They did this to us, so we're going to do that to them. They blew up, they bombed our city, so we're going to bomb theirs. You know, and if they did this to us, then we're going to do that. If they do this, then we're going to up the game. We're going to get like them. Of course, for them, that works much more than peace and love, and we're going to rescue the world and nonviolent resistance and all of that. Technically, that other works better. In their world, it works. It works, and you have to challenge yourself about what you're really all about. That was just a book that I read, and it was a good ending. The book had a good ending. It had a good introduction, and it had a nice historical perspective. It had instructions that people would buy books on sniping, you know, stuff like that, and find out themselves what snipers do, right? Find out what kind of practice that you do. And at that level, you don't have to be the best sniper that can hit a target half a mile away. You know what I mean? All you have to do is be effective and efficient, and you train with your little team on a semi-regular basis. And you don't have a time schedule. You do things when you get ready and how you get ready. And you monitor the laws, and any big mouth senator or congressman get up and start talking, we got to do this and that for the police, and they haven't said a thing about all the black people is getting killed. Well, you know, everybody just wait a while and, you know, whatever would happen. According to the book, that's what would happen. You know, all these big mouths. And if the media don't learn anything, if they just sit up there and talk like, oh, this is what happened, and they act like they don't know what's going on in the world, well, see, if there's no cost for nothing, you can do what you want. The Zionists have the world today where you can do anything you want. You can kill Palestinians, there's no cost, right? You can do what you want to Iran and there's no cost, right? They've designated, they've otherized everybody, and whoever is otherized, you can't, that's the way it goes. In Yemen, they're otherized. In Syria, they're otherized. So the Golan Heights, the Israelis can keep it because there's no cost. Okay, the the idea of peace and love and tranquility and helping the world evolve is a message that technically very, very seldom works. It very seldom works. The other one almost works almost all the time. Why? Because they got to sit up and wonder now. They're driving down the street and Officer so-and-so just got his head busted wide open, a few months ago. They can either do several things. They can increase the heat on black people. That's gonna boost everything up. Or they can get paranoid, especially when their names is in the paper, their pictures are in the paper, and you could spend a couple of years, nothing obvious, that you just research. And every now and then, Officer so-and-so that killed Johnny Boy was found dead, right? Officer so-and-so that killed Fast Black 10 years ago was found dead in his retirement home, where he lived for 20 years after he had killed Eula Love in Oakland somewhere, in 1986. The police that beat the 14-year-old boy to death in the jail in Oakland. All of that stuff. Or the police that shot the 5-year-old boy. I don't know if I ever showed y'all a picture. The 5-year-old kid got a gun. Those old pistols, they were so heavy a 5-year-old kid couldn't hold it up. You know what I mean? He couldn't hold it up like this. He just couldn't do it. He's 5 years old. And he's there playing with it in the house. The police looks in the house and shoot the boy to death. All he got to do is send his mama in there, his cousin or somebody, and said, "Hey, what you got there?" Anything, right? But black, shoot them. Well, if they turn the tables where white, shoot them. And there's been these arguments throughout history. Everybody hear about the ANC. Very few people hear about the PAC. You hear about Pan-African Congress. One settler, one bullet. And they did a lot of healthy stuff. And they were the cause. The Cubans in Angola fighting those people was the cause of South Africa crumbling. All of those are the things that brought South Africa down. Not nice Mr. Mandela. He's a nice guy. They talked with him, they felt him out, and they let him out of prison because he would lead the country to peace and love and stuff like that. It's not bad. Any smart thing, white folks doing that. And so you begin to take one picture of history, and we believe in Mandelaism. We really believe in it, but we have to coast a while. We have to delay something, because to do something or to say something that you know is true is difficult. It's difficult when you know the other part is true too. Nonviolent resistance is true. Yeah. Alternative resistance is true. It's the best for this time. We have to adopt the principles that are best for the time in which we live. This is a different period in history, although the cyclical period is here again. In other words, there are critical periods in history And at each critical period in history, the environmental circumstances is the thing that shaped what the people wanted to be away from, what the people wanted to be toward. So when you base your history, let's say, on European history a couple of hundred years ago, right? European history was white folks was oppressed by, okay, they're in the British Empire, but those white people in England, that was the priest class, the landed gentry, and the royalty. And all those big castles and big houses, all the land around it, and all the land was owned. You ever see Nottingham and the sheriff? That's the sheriff's reserve there, right? Well, that's the king's reserve, and you can't hunt in the king's reserve. What? That's like saying this is America, and America got King Trump, and you can't hunt on, right? You're starving to death, and there's plenty of animals out there, but you can't hunt on his territory. So the colonies were started, first they had religious persecution. If you look at the King James Version, 1619, and look at what was going on, Plymouth Rock was 1620. Why did King James Version of the Bible have to come out? That's what it says, the King James Version. Because there's disunity and disharmony in the empire. It's the same as Constantine, the Council of Nicaea, putting all this stuff together based on what he was about. You know what I mean? And what his mama was about. Yeah. So that's what they put together. They put together what are we going to be about? Where are we headed? So in England at that time, you either had to be part of the priest class, right? Or you wasn't going to be a nobleman. So you worked you didn't own any land, you worked for Mr. Sohn. Let's call it sharecropping. Didn't nobody own their own, this is my property, right, in England and in most of Europe. So now, imagine you can go to America and there's a whole land there, just a whole land. And then when later on, a couple hundred years later, when they have heavy immigration, you can come here and you could come out west and you could get 160 acres, you know, and on the tape I have of my father, he talking about one of his friends that he had been working for when he was young. He said, this man cleared 300 acres. He said, that's the biggest mistake that I believe I ever made, was that in Arkansas in those days, when he was young, they still had, you could still go settle. He said you could stick your thing in the ground and claim that. They still had that in the 1900s, way up in the 1900s, that you could claim territory, clear the brush, and you could start farming, and you get the title to that. Okay, in America, imagine white folks in Europe, say after the U.S. has now been settled and all of that, and they hear that you can come here to America and get 160 acres free. It's your own land. Why you think all them people from all over, they came here? Because it's free land. For them, that was freedom because they lived under the landed gentry, right? The princes, the dukes, the earls, all them people had all the land. They had all the land, they owned all the land, and they didn't own anything. So they could come over here hey, we already know how to farm, and we get 160 acres free. And we can get our boy, he can go over there and get another 160 acres, and we get somebody to go over here. Shoot, we're going to have acres and acres of land, free. It's ours. So that's a calling card for America. So what the people wanted was based on their past history. What Martin Luther King wanted and the people of that generation wanted was based on our past history. Right? A history of slavery and so-called freedom, the right to vote. His whole dream. I had a dream that my 4 little daughters will be judged by the content of their character. Right? Da, 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 da. That's a very, very old dream for now, right? But that was his dream, and as he said, deeply founded in the American dream. What was the American dream? They always tell you, go west, young man. Remember, whether it was Davy Crockett, born down there in Tennessee, he goes to Texas, right? Everybody wanted to go westward. And the more you went west, the less police, the less officials you had, right? That was because freedom and liberation, they didn't already form this back here. And who got all the big money? The people that started all of this. All the poor people was fighting the British, but who was they fighting with? George Washington had to down there in Mount, whatever it is. Oh, what's the name? Mount Vernon. All them people was rich. Goodness gracious alive, them crackers was rich. John, all them people, Benjamin Franklin was the first millionaire in America. And in order to vote, you had to have what? Property. Who would put that in a constitution that's supposed to be freedom, that you can be white as snow and you can't vote because you ain't got no property? Right? Except the people that got property, because they all going to vote for the same thing. Like all the trillionaires, the billionaires, and the millionaires, they vote for the same thing. Right? They vote for the same thing. Yeah, because they're up there. You notice when people start getting on up there, they start seeing the people as customers, as servants, as somebody that they don't have any value except what their value is for them. Commodities, the bigger they get, it's not impossible, but it's common. Even we had the same experience in Jahiliyyah, but we caught ourselves. We're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Then you say, I'm big so-and-so. So if you big, guess what everybody else is? Little. Right? They little. And if they're little, well, they're just little. That's too bad for them. God made them little. You didn't do nothing to make them little. They just little. They think little. They act little. The stuff they want is little. They don't want nothing big. They want little stuff because they little. What do you think a billionaire thinks about me and you? If he ever thinks about us, is that we're not important. We're only important, like our brother said, as a commodity. So your idea of freedom would be based on that. I want to be free from big boss man. So the white folks, if they got New York and everything, and the shopkeepers is getting all, and they're getting up, right? And there's a whole class of other people. So even in America, founded on freedom, if you want more freedom, you go out there and get it. Go west, young man. That's why Horace Greeley and all them people, That's why people went to the West. Just imagine you get your whole family and put them on a doggone covered wagon, and you can't go but 15 miles a day. That's on a good day, and if it's not raining and going through the mud. You got to cross rivers and stuff like that, and you got to tie big logs on your wagon. And half the people got to walk because you got your stuff in the wagon, so you can't be. So they had to walk across the United States, or from wherever they was, they had to walk there. Train wasn't there yet. It's before the train. So therefore, the idea of Tennessee as a wilderness was big when everybody was farther back this way, D.C., New York, and right along the coast, 13 colonies. After this is all established and everybody, your opportunity for wealth is they getting all the money, and there's a whole crew of people with very little opportunity. They go west. That was a western expansion. There's nobody out there but Indians, and if you kill a few, and if you get killed by them or scalped, just think about it. The people's willing to take that chance to go out west of getting scalped by people who are already there. That means they had a serious reason. Things was bad where they was. Now, if they talk about we don't want nobody else to come in here, well, if they don't want nobody else to come into America, then stop taking all their money, stop interfering with their elections every time they want a good guy to come in. The U.S., the CIA, and they people interfere with that election and bring in their homeboy that's going to take all their money and send it up here. Okay? If all the money, if they're stealing every dime down there and they don't leave no more money, the people are not stupid. They're going to come up here where all the money is. Right? If they want to fix immigration in South and Central America, send money down there. Say, we have a new program. We're going to spend, like we had a Marshall Plan for white folks in Europe, we're going to have the Smith Plan, or the Ooga Booga Plan, we'll call it by, the Guterres Plan for Central America, right? In South America. We're going to send just a few $1 billion down there. So you could get your money down there and keep your money down there, and you can stay at home and live a good life. And it won't take much. They spend more money on immigration and building all these camps. If they sent that money down there, of course, that makes too much sense. If they sent that money down there, they sent just 1/10 of the money on wars that they spend. Good God Almighty. Anyway, we're going to move on. So therefore, your idea of success is based on your recent history, most people. So Martin Luther King's idea was the promised land, the American dream. And his dream was deeply founded in the American dream. And the American dream was founded on, later on by the 1830s, manifest destiny. This is our destiny. Can you imagine this? The white folks said, the Anglo-Saxon white folks said it's our destiny to be a two-ocean power. And that's where the stealing of Mexico, can you imagine they stole 55% of Mexico? And they sent, when they invaded Veracruz and when the American army went down to Mexico City, the only reason that they didn't keep the whole place is we don't want that many, these people, there's too many to control. The U.S. would be too big. Because remember Mexico, how big Mexico is already. Now imagine if you would have had Texas, you know how big Texas is? California, Arizona, the states that they stole made up 25% of continental USA. Imagine if you would have added all the rest of Mexico to it. They didn't want to control it. Why? Because there's too many people to control. They didn't want to get beyond their ability. That's the reason they didn't keep it all. But from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of the halls of Montezuma, when they invaded Mexico, they found that they didn't have no resistance, so they just kept on going. Anyway, all right. So people's idea of success and happiness is based on where they came from, what they was involved in. So that's why you always hear about freedom, liberty, and all of that stuff. Fraternity, France, freedom, liberty, fraternity. Yeah, you hear about, those are things that you hear about because those are the things that the people wanted that came from wherever they came from. And in America, those are the things that people wanted. Relief from the king. Right? No quartering of troops. You can't put troops in people. They was putting soldiers in people's houses, doing anything they wanted. So they put in the Constitution things that they wanted. And remember about us, we read what Thomas Jefferson said and other so-called good Americans said about their so-called human rights, and later on the Bill of Rights, but actually what they said in the Declaration of Independence. The part they left out was about black people. Y'all remember we didn't read it many. What they left out was, and the only place I found that was in the 1976, I think. The big old black book, this big encyclopedia, and it had Frederick Douglass's stuff in there. And it also had the stuff that they didn't want. It had the 4th of July, Frederick Douglass's speech. And then the point I'm making is they have never had an idea of freedom and liberty for you and I. That's why we don't get it. They never had, that's never been a part, they don't even, what? Oh, they never even considered freedom, justice, fraternity, love, respect for black people. If they did, they'd have had over 150 years to fix it. Jim Crow, all that Jim Crow is the same as slavery. When I was born in Arkansas, the people lived, I'm talking about horses, mules, and wagons and all that. That's all and the old pumps that you pumped your water out of the thing, all of that. Outhouses, everything was exactly the same as Reconstruction, including no electricity. When electricity comes, you come into the modern world of refrigerators and stuff like that. I remember when we got electricity, 1950. What? Before that, we had lanterns. We'd burn the house down, whatever happened, I remember my brother, when he was 4, before I was born, he burned the barn down. Everybody considered it a big deal, but it was a big deal. You burned down the whole barn. Why? You just carrying the lantern, kerosene lantern in there, and set it on some hay, it falls over. Fire! He runs off because it's fire. And by the time they get back, the thing that burned down. Anyway, that's the way people lived. You couldn't preserve nothing. That's why they had salt pork. Remember, they don't have salt pork anymore. They had salt pork. Wow. Why was all the pork salted? Because it prevented the germs and all of that, right? It cured it. Preserved smoke houses, where you smoked your meat. jerky where you dried your meat. All that dried fruit in this thing that costs $100,000 a package, a little package, you had to dry your fruit. You had all those pears and everything. You spread it out, let the sun dry it up. Why? So you could have those vitamins and minerals in the wintertime. Because they didn't have, they had summer vegetables and winter stuff. Even when I was a kid, not long ago, you had stuff that you had in the summer, and you had it in the summer. You didn't have cherries and grapes and all of that all year round? Oh, I'm sorry. No, indeed. You had them, and you had tomatoes in the summer. That's when you had them. That's it. Because that was the season. But anyway, back to your history has a lot to do with your dream and your expectations. And we use Martin Luther King. His dream, I may not get to the promised land, but y'all gonna get to the promised land, the promised land. Why would you have an idea about a promised land? Well, it comes from the Bible. The promised land, you're gonna cross over the stream, and on the other side is the promised land. That's a nice biblical rendition. It's about another people's captivity, but we adopted it as our own. That here in America, we're going to get to the promised land. Has anybody gotten there? Promised land. Well, the land of milk and honey. Is anybody in the land of milk and honey? Or is your life threatened if you're black? How well are you accepted? Sure, people got you in movies and everything, but they still shooting you down like a dog. You see what I mean? So our picture of a happy environment comes from our past, and we don't want that to be our future. We'll speak about those things in a minute. So I'm going to speed up. Election system, inability to face reality. The election, what they're having right now, they're unable to face reality. They're not talking about anything real. They're not talking about, even in Roosevelt's time, he had enough sense to reorganize the country, to bring in Social Security, to bring in NRA. By the way, NRA, just to show you. So I asked my father, what about NRA, National Reconstruction? He said, for us, it stands for niggers, raggedy ass. That's what they call it, the black people. Why? Because white folks could get that money from the government, but niggers couldn't. Niggers, that's what our people call it. Remember, by 1936, my father was 36 years old then. He was a full-grown man. And so I said, what about Roosevelt's NRA and all? He said, yeah, it stands for niggers, raggedy ass. We couldn't get a dime of none of that Reconstruction money and all that. Okay. But this election that we're having now is totally unreal. There's not one thing they're talking about remodeling. Franklin Roosevelt said, we're going to, Sweden Conservation Council, we're going to have a big deal, a new deal. And for then, it was pretty serious. But now they need a super duper triple new deal, a real deal, a new approach to life. And none of them could come in and say, okay, the first thing we're going to do is have a national meeting, then we're going to have a global meeting and decide what we want the world to look like, right? in 20 years. And then we're going to mobilize all the resources at our disposal to get to that place. Whatever rationing, whatever things we need. See, the American people, if they knew that everybody was in it, they could go through a little. They do it in wars, they do it all the time, right? But they don't want to see the rich. Shoot, during the war, that was a 94, 90-something tax thing on the rich. Huh? Yeah. So they could share all that money the rich had with the poor. Boy, now they'd really have big money now if they put them in a 90-something% tax bracket and they couldn't write off hardly nothing. Boy, they, huh?
It's funny because the guy 50 Cent, black rapper.
Yeah, breakfast.
He decided to vote for Trump because Biden is going to put a 62% whatever on, tax on the rich.
Right.
So he said, I'm going to vote for Trump because it's not about black people, like you said.
Right.
It's about him and his money. So that's exactly, that was just something that recently happened.
I spent a little time, now for a while, Mr. 50 Cent had a couple of nice videos and lectures on motivation and all that. Will Smith had some, Denzel has some, a lot of Negroes when they get bigger. But included in some of that is that attitude of, I made it, now you're going to have to make it. And I don't want, forget about class and all that fraternity. There's a Mexican police, he was saying, well, you want to do this, you want to do that about, he was interviewing me at the jail. I said, well, I don't want to put too much on the brothers. He said, when they put on that uniform, this is a sergeant, he's the police. Talking about Mexican. He said, when they put on that uniform, it's all gone. So whatever you want to put down here, he was telling me, and they told him to say that, of course. In other words, feel free. Don't hold back because they Mexican brothers and we don't want them to be in trouble. He said, hey, shoot. He didn't say, I'm one of them, but he might as well say. The point is this. As they move up the ladder, it's what we always say, that it's success or material success is really something. I mean, when you start going into those other categories and you have your money to think about, actually I'm proud of the people in Hollywood because a lot of them are really liberal. And they do stuff that everybody complain about. Madonna said Malcolm X was the greatest man in history, and she got a little kid from somewhere. I said, well, so what? She's a white woman. That's good. You know what I mean? She might even get a couple of stars on her name for. That ain't nothing. Not the white woman they just in the Supreme Court got 2 niggas, right? So that ain't no big deal. It ain't nothing to be mad about. It's better than nothing. That's at least one little nigga that got that ain't starving to death, right? And so, some of them white folks, remember the programs we'd have, Susan Sarandon would sit down there on the steps just like an average American, sitting on the steps waiting to get up and talk. So a lot of them, some of them have found out, can you turn that heat down just? Some of them have found out about money and fame. And they're not happy. They're not happy. And they found out, a lot of them found out if you give back, because a lot of them came from, well, all of them came from poor people, they had to go against their family, they had to not get a job, acting. You got to get a job acting. You're going to play music for your life. I just love music and I love music more than money. Well, what about when the music started paying for itself? That's good when you can do what you want. And anyway, the system unable to face reality. Locus of control. In psychology, locus of control means where control is located. The more the human being feels that they have control of their life, the better they feel about life. It's called locus of control. There's a special time in history, and we have to look where we are, where we want to go, and what opposition to change. Why is there always opposition to change? Always. Because the ones is the status quo. They got everything going their way. They're getting all the money, all the power, all the wealth. So, hey, what's up with that? You know, they don't want to change it. And you want to change the system? Well, we oppose you. And we happen to have the money. And anybody get with you, they either work for one of us and we're going to fire them. We're going to, the same old stuff, right? Okay. People talk about freedom and liberty and fraternity, but now it's more responsibility than freedom. We're now, the human being is more responsible. Now, we have to be more responsible and not, like the Donald Trump people. We have the freedom to not wear a mask just because everybody dying like flies. You know, these numbers are getting a little serious now. I mean, it's past the 500,000 the other day, and it's accelerating. And what the white folks said is happening, that this thing during the winter is going to increase. They're talking about 400,000 and 500,000 people dead by Christmas. That's only, 2 months away. New Year's Day is 2 months from now, right? Hey, man. I have freedom. You got the freedom to stay away from me. Right, yeah, you got the freedom to stay away from me. I don't want what you got. I don't want to take no chances. So you stay over there. Talking about segregation, I'm down with that all the way. Segregation, isolation, everything. Effects of history on your environment, on your vision for the future. This is basically what the stuff we went through has effect on our vision for the future. The reason I was talking about the story about the book that I might have read or could have read, would relate to our vision of what we've been through and what has worked in the past. I got a feeling that what we're dealing with now, we got a lot of help coming from a whole lot of places. That's what the hope is. And we're not alone. You know, we're not alone in this. And people, they try to make us feel like abnormal, or we're not down with reality. Well, even in those motiversity tapes, they say, when you look up, you're going to find out you alone, you're all by yourself. Of course, that's true, technically. But it don't scare me, because every time I looked up, every time, it's training in the penitentiary, in them riots, you know, some type of way people would pick me for the leader, or just pick me to go down and talk to the captain or somebody and say, this is what we want, and then off you go, and nobody else is there. What about me? Right? You get used to it. You get used to that stuff. So This thing, even going into exile, I went into exile by myself. I asked my family, y'all want to go? The house. I said, okay, keep the house, it's fine. You know, I said it'll be interesting. It'll be. And you know, I'm the only one in the family that's ever been. My brother went to Mexico from a family member. Oh, my brother used to be in the army, so he went to Germany somewhere. But as a crowd, nobody ever saw Moshia Tunje, the falls there, and you know, the great waterfall, what they call Lake Victoria. That's one of the eight wonders of the world. Nobody ever even went to the pyramids. Nobody ever went to see the pyramids. Nobody. All right? They never, you know, in my family, nobody ever went to Machu Picchu and saw at Urubamba River here, and that great city built at the top of the mountain where the people fled, the nobles from Cusco, the capital of the Inca Empire, fled when the Spanish was coming. They built a city up on top of the mountain. They show us pictures looking down on it now. But in those days, if the Spanish went right down by the side of the river, they couldn't see the city up there. That's why it was an escape for the people, the noble people in Cusco. They ran off and they built the city on the top of the mountain. There's a whole city up there, you go, all terraced and agriculture, everything. And the top of a mountain, if the traveling and every day, the train, Cusco is about 15,000 feet up. Something like that. So the top of the mountains is 18,000 feet in South America. And the headwaters of the Amazon runs right by there, Urubamba River. 4,000 miles away from but nobody ever saw that. I'm the only one saw it. I'm the only one been there and breathed it and everything. I'm the only one. So who benefited from exile? I did. Who benefited from staying here? Nobody. They're still enslaved. They're not 1 foot forward, right? They just never took a chance. They never took a risk. They never saw that. And if they did travel anywhere, they'd travel. My ex-wife, poor child, she went to Hawaii. And she was telling me, yes, we visited the USS Arizona. I said, yeah, that's right. USS Arizona. Yeah, that's what they visited in Hawaii. Not that Hawaii was stolen in 1898 from our people, right? They cut the genitals of the lady off, the Queen of Hawaii, and got them some jar somewhere. Yeah, it was just the people. Anyway, let me go on. Freedom of the present question. Evolution at the rate and the speed that the world is traveling in now calls for world-class movement and management. Things are not moving. Man, in the old days, 10, 15 years ago, we could plan and organize and structure and da-da-da-da-da. 2000 is not like that. I mean, it's moving so fast that you have to work to keep yourself focused on what you're doing, not on what they're talking about. Because what we're doing is the reality. That old stuff about, well, people are not going to like you, and people are going to leave you. And I said, I said, I'm the most left Negro in the United States. You know, like even not Jahiliyyah, you know, everybody, the boss man, they said, man, they got you on the chessboard, the white man got. I said, I know it. That means that eventually you're going to be gone. And we're not going to be around when you're gone because you're hot. You know, you heat up, so they believe the heat is just like if you heat this end of the bar, right, then the other end of the bar going to get hot too. So they don't want to be nowhere near it. So they tried to convince you that number one, you're going to be alone in this. I don't believe that. I believe the same thing we always have known, collective consciousness. Don called it collective herd consciousness. He wanted to say, he called it consciousness, but he wanted to call it collective or herd immunity. But he called it herd consciousness or something. I said, a herd ain't conscious. Anyway, it's herd immunity, but Don can say about whatever he wants. Herd collective consciousness is in the 50s and the 60s, people all over the world, all at the same time wanted freedom. That was the freedom, liberty, everything, everybody. That was collective consciousness. And it happened everywhere, all at the same time. Africa wanted freedom. We wanted freedom inside. They wanted to get rid of the colonial powers, and we wanted to get the white man's foot off our neck, right here. All at the same time. The world is producing the environmental circumstances where people are now beginning to feel the weight of the smelliness of the oceans, right? The melting of ice caps and all of that. Okay, so there's a collective consciousness developing. We're a part of that. Yeah, within next week, a week or so, we're going to be visiting everybody on a regular basis. But we believe that we are not alone in this endeavor that we're dealing with. And you can see it everywhere. It's not just Black Lives Matter, stuff like that. All of it matter. Okay. Problem identifiers and problem solvers. We've already identified the problems and we're doing what we can to solve the problem. And we don't know what's going on in depth inside of Boss Man's system. Inside of every system, pre-revolution, there's always people inside the system that they know better than some of the people on the outside what's going on. Some of them always join. One of the signs that the revolution in Iran was solidified was when the Air Force, they had an army, they had an Air Force, and they had a Navy. When the Air Force joined the revolution, that means one military arm have joined, and that's it. The revolution was solidified. To this very day, they have Air Force Day in Iran, because the Air Force is the one that solidified, the military arm that solidified the revolution. About us, why are we not sad about anything? Because we established what we have now. We manipulated the environment. Does anybody remember the 2005 type lectures on clearinghouse? You might have heard it somewhere. Clearinghouse. Oakland was a clearinghouse. That's 2005. There's lectures on At the same time, on snitches, on this, that, and other people on the boat, that what do you do about hadith about the people on the boat, that they don't want to disturb nobody because waterfall to knock a hole in the boat, and those hadith. That was when we built the fire under Abdul Malik. It started in 2002. When we had that national meeting here and we saw what they was doing, we said, that's it. So it didn't happen, no 2 days we get up and jump on it, but from 2002, 3, 4, and 5, we was ready. We set the stage. See, it's always the long range. We set the stage. You can see in our writing 2003 or 4, kindness is not weakness. Just like this thing we did today, you have to remind yourself, kindness is not weakness, it's strength. So, we built a fire under Abdul Malik. We built a fire under him. Clearinghouse in Oakland. Things about the immigrant, we was hinting at the immigrants, all the people who was inviting him all over when we would visit Irvine and all the other places. We're dropping hints everywhere we go, right? Everywhere we go. But they're on his side, all of them, and we're dropping hints to make sure to see how they're going to act. And it's not only the Sunni side, the Shia side, headquarters, supposed to have been my super friends, right? That headquarters was paid for by something right over there. If you get involved, you can tell. So if you looked at us, you would say, man, homeboy is surrounded. For sure. And ain't nobody on it. Out of all them people, at that time, 8 full-fledged centers with hundreds of people in each one, right? Okay, we knew what we was doing from that minute. And we had to prove it to the world and to ourselves. So we just lit a fire. Pull down Abdul Malik, and after a while, boop. By 2008, he resigned. Okay. Well, we never did nothing to him. We asked him a simple question. What about this lady you married? Just asked the question. Then he popped up and zipped. And we had 4 reliable witnesses. First of all, we talked to the lady. We talked to the whole curly-headed crew. They all in the curly. We talked to 3 members. Well, we got 3 members with the 4th member, and even my wife would say, yeah, such and such and such, all the time. She's an offshoot of the curly-headed crew, associate of the curly-headed crew. Yeah. They know all about each other. Oh, that woman has picked up a lot of weight. Well, I'm saying in 10, 15 years, how do you know? Right? Who's telling you that? Right? So the crackpot crew in Oakland, they can call the house anytime and leave a message, and they would call it. In other words, you know what you're dealing with. So we set a fire. We manipulated the situation. Boom. We manipulated the situation with the sale of property. We're going to turn that beautiful, now we didn't remodel 2 big sections of it ourselves. We did 80% of the work by ourselves over a period of 3 or 4 years. Every time we went to California, we worked all day long. I would stay in there and I would work in there all day, doing all the stuff needed to be done. So maybe 2016 or something, he sold the property. Why? Because we told him to. Why would we tell him to? Everything that happened in Oakland, we arranged it. Number one, what's the big deal about the property anyway? Property, property, property. Number one thing is we started hitting. Now, we donated a lot when they have a fundraiser, when they need to pay taxes. So we hinted the opposite of that. We said, yeah, well, when we bought that big piece of property, well, it's 5 buildings all in one and 8,000 square feet of ground territory land. So, yeah, so-and-so, he now they just gave up on that, and we got them to help us buy all of that. So they got mad. But you got to remember the part we remodeled. I went downtown with Brother Mukhtar and 8111 and 8109. In the back of those is 8119 and 8115. Where we remodeled to, Abdul Malik said it's going to cost $25,000. The city said you have to tear that part in the back down. Well, the part that was the best was the part where we remodeled it. We remodeled all of that, those 4 addresses. But we thought it was just 2 addresses. We went down in the microfilm. I said, hey, look at here, Mukhtar. Mukhtar knows all that. He was right there. The big yard that we had, 8,000 square feet, they would park all the taxi cabs there and leave them junk. It was a junkyard. So they would write up all kind of stuff on it, and which anybody would. The point is this. When we took, and y'all might remember, in 2017, we took 3 sections of paperwork. All of them, each 3rd section was a whole set of paperwork. Bank accounts, this and that. And we took it to California. And every time we would go run, we would take that with us. Every time we left the masjid, we would take that box and another, and we would put it in the car. So we're under surveillance, therefore, the police got to have that. Think about it. So they arrest me, and y'all saw the paperwork. We turned that paperwork over to Mr. Mukhtar because it was paperwork from the office of the masjid, and none of it had Clarence Ream's name on it. The only thing is everything had my name on it, right? They didn't care. They just took it. But see, now remember, all of that's on the body cams and all that. And I'm just running all that. That's mine, this, that, and other. And so the point is, we made them do that. We manipulated them doing that because we knew who they was. And we knew what caused them to respond. You see what I mean? We know them. We've been with them all the time. So you have to think, even the other day, remember we said, okay, now the crackpot line is open. Who calls? Tell the truth. It's just ridiculous. The crackpot, I said, okay, the crackpot, I happen to have my phone. So I said, the crackpot line is open. And the crackpot calls. That means we're manipulating them. It don't make no difference how or what, they do what we tell them. We're not the victim here. We were a long time ago. We were victims, like Malcolm said, we're victims of Americanism. We said we want to stop being victims. So when we look at our thing, when we wrote Big Victory in 1986, by the 1990s, we're not a victim anymore. And way up into the 90s, we're now competitors. We're competing with America. And by now, we're manipulating America. You say, but they're doing this, that. That's okay. What do you expect, right? But that means we manipulating this. You have to understand it. It is true what we're saying. Everything that we just laid out, all this stuff comes from us manipulating them. So in 2005, clearinghouse. Why would we be talking like that? Clearinghouse. And why would we be asking the questions of Hashim Alauddin and Wali and all of that? That was, what's the name's? Oh yeah, on that subject, is here, I just say it now while we're talking about that subject. We're remodeling 4481. We had made an offer several weeks ago. Okay, if the offer would have been taken up, then we laid out the type of person we want to have a UC Berkeley educated, we even named it to be multiracial. So that was offering a certain person an opportunity to really to get big, to have a real life, you know, or you could stay wherever you are, doing that nickel and dime. Not that's nickel and dime, but I mean, you know, the global Islamic movement, who would turn that down? So that's what we was fixing that up. That somebody, if it's possible for them to move in, they'll move in. They'll be dealing with lightweight management, editing and writing and all the stuff they got the talent for. They did it before. Okay, we didn't get that. We said that's going to be open for a while. We didn't get that. So now with 4481, it's been a person been asking every day for the last 6 months or a year. You know, about that. So no, we have a choice. Okay. Now remember, we got downstairs too. We can make that a lightweight management center, and we have technically hardly no income except maybe one that comes in, right? And so we can let them have that place. You know, we can let them have that place. We'll remodel it, finish remodeling as quick as possible, get it open and let them have it. But we have to make decisions like that. That's either because of this coronavirus, because of all of this, because of our inability to go to Eads and do all that stuff and get out. We used to have a nice hustle. Okay, we don't have that hustle anymore. We don't even have a chance to speak as many crowds. We will get that on the internet when we stretch out. But right now, we don't have that. So we could either sell that lot on 5045 A Street, or we could rent that place out and we'll do whatever else we need with other property. That'll keep us afloat, because we don't want to be disadvantaged with California, like you have a need, so you're going to have to accept our terms. You know, like they do poor people. Well, you can't tell us nothing, cracker. We don't have to accept nothing. Okay. But our thinking is like this. Always think big. So we going for the total show, total remodeling, total reopening, total expansion, right? Everything, right? And like they built them 2 houses over there, we're going to build houses on our property. In other words, we're not taking any steps backward. We're only going forward. Because this stage we're in, we may call it phase 3. Phase 3, or because of all the things that we went through over these years, you would call this maybe phase 3, what we've been dealing with the last few years, and what we did in the first phase and the second phase. And this is the third phase. But the first stage of that is just, totally remodeling what we have. Just coming out first class, remodeling downstairs, remodeling 4481, and build on what we have. Just build. Now that's just the first stage of phase 3. What we're just talking about now is not where the world-class movement. The world-class movement is that within a certain amount of time, within a couple of years, no less than a few years, we want to be smack dab in the middle of the global human revivalist movement, the earth revivalist movement. That's what we always move toward. We call it the Earth Liberation Movement. If you read our literature back, okay. Well, anytime you have a movement, you have different phases. This has just been a phase of our movement, that's all. All of them are phases. Because we're not gonna, if they want us to quit or turn around or get tired, it ain't gonna be none of that. We're just not, I don't know what to tell the boss man. We're not gonna do that. He's gonna help us before we help him. We ain't even thinking about, the world is going our way. Every prediction, every forecast, everything we make, right? It comes out the way we forecast it. It's as though we're right all the time and they're wrong all the time. And they're going downhill, not us. We headed uphill. And then the phase we're in calls for national expansion. Like if it was base areas, the only base areas we have now is here, DC, and in Oakland. But you don't use up all your troops fighting for base areas, right? If you're in a revolutionary or counter-revolutionary, you don't use up a guerrilla warfare. You don't sit there, we're gonna defend this fort. No, you say, you want it, you can have it. And you go out in the woods. And when they occupy the fort, you attack them, right? That's exactly what we've done. They want us to hold on to Oakland, right? They put us out of the masjid, right? We get out of the masjid and we attack them. We've been attacking them. All these things, we've been attacking them for years. We've been attacking them for years. You know why? We have more sense than y'all do. Y'all, you got to get out of this revolutionary game. I told you from the first get-go, this stuff is heavier than you, and we can see where you are. You're a day-to-day police with police training. The police can't train you about nothing they don't know nothing about. They're flat-foots. They're flat-foots. They walk, they used to be flat-foot, a beat walker. They walk, they don't know nothing. They don't know nothing. Half of them are perverts and got psychological problems and all that. That's the same way y'all are. Y'all got psychological problems and all kind of, we don't have those. The movement wipes out all of that stuff. If you got them when you get in, if you get to where we are now, you ain't got none of them, or you got 2-3%, that's all. Right? Because it gets rid of all that. It wipes it out. You cannot do the stuff we're doing if you have mental problems, paranoia, and all that dumb stuff. Yeah, 70, 50 years ago, the white man had the ability to paranoid. Man, this place is all day, all the time, everywhere. That was 50 years ago, a little more. But not 40 years ago, maybe a little bit, 15%. And definitely not from 20 years on this way. From back 20 years ago, 2002. No, we was already moving. That's when we attacked 22 years ago. This last attack was 20 years ago, 22 years, 2002, 18 years ago, excuse me. 18 years ago, we launched a counteroffensive. We're just reaching the end of that. That's called protracted struggle, long-range struggle. People don't do that nowadays. They don't have they can't think that far ahead. And they don't have the patience. They don't have the patience. So, okay. Back to, what did we call it? The crackpot line. We say the crackpot line is open. Nobody called except the crackpots. Right? Can you imagine? Boy, that just was funny, that's all.
I was sitting there watching and, the phone wasn't ringing yet. They ain't gonna do it. Did it? She did it.
No, look, that's what we got going. Look, the world is headed our way. The world, one writer, maybe it was Dickens, he said it was the best of times, but it was the worst of times. That's the way life is. Huh? Tale of two cities, right? Look, tell the truth. This is the worst anybody had. This is terrible. But in a way, you look at the world's peoples. They've always had wars, as the Bible said, rumors of wars. People used to live off $1 a day. Now they living over there. They did. Now they live off $2 a day. Maybe it's inflation. Worldwide, poverty, when I lived in South America, my partners did boxing, so we used to do this little alligator walk. It's like crawling on your hand, right here, and, with your legs, are touching the ground, and you get good at it so much, you can almost be flat walking like an alligator. And that was one of the exercises. Every now and then just jump down and do that. When I did it in South America, everybody would be looking. When I did it in Africa, nobody paid attention. You know why? It was so many people with polio and all that in Africa in those days. They never even, because so many people get around that's how they get around, down on the ground in those days. The diet, Africa has come way up. When you say Africa, that means millions of people. In India, they still have tons of starvation and all that, but they also, like Kishore Mubabani said, he said things are better. If you look at it around the world, actually more people got health care now than they ever did. And even the coronavirus, so everybody need money, the government just said you can get $600 per week extra. They didn't have that before. If you went broke, you just went broke, right? I'm just saying, it's the best of times, but it's the worst of times, because technology, murder, oppression is so widespread and sophisticated that it makes it the worst of times. And that's what we're living in. The worst of times, but the best of times. But you got to remember, though, we got what's different from us. We're choosing. We're making a choice. What do we want to do? I was looking at some of the, on the phone, Motiversity stuff. Yeah. So if you look at the subjects that they talk about, they're talking about the subjects where we was in maybe 50 years ago about discipline, self-control. You know, I don't sleep when what's his name? I sleep when I'm finished. What did he say?
I know the quote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One good term, we've said it here, that I love. He said, if you do what's hard, life is easy. If you do what's easy, life is hard. That's might as well. We done said the same thing so many times. It's like a setback ain't nothing but a setup for a comeback. We say that type of stuff so long that I tell old Jolly, whatever his name is, hey man, you stealing our stuff. You know, but it sounds good. It's good, but that's true. If you do what's hard, I mean, life is easy, and it's fun. Do y'all remember about 3 years ago, I went through this thing, what did we call it? Age regression. And it was working. I mean, look at here. Out there on the iron pile, Brother Tufel was watching. I had iron on the bar so much, rack, you know, when it comes down and the iron shakes a little and it make that noise, and I would rack. And shoot, I was painting houses in the hot weather. I'd get so, you know, all that sweat, and I'd take those clothes off, go lay down, come back and get sweat again. When I say sweaty, that means with the plastic on. So that period has ended. What I mean is like, no, eventually it's almost a joke to me, but before, condition, how you felt was done with condition. If I ran 10-mile trails and 8-mile trails with hand weights, 5 pounds each, you'd feel a certain way. You know, if you ran 5-mile trails, you know, you wouldn't feel half as good, but you would feel all right, you know. And how you worked out had a lot to do with how you felt. But it came a time where you couldn't work out like that. In fact, you'd get so tired, you'd have to, you know, so you have to learn how to work out to where you get to a certain level and it energizes you. And you don't go beyond that because you're going to be tired. So one of the brothers was out here the other day. He said, he was at the janazah. He said, Imam Musa, I bet you're not hitting the bag and working out anymore. I said, of course I do. I just, I do the same thing, but it's a little different. You know what I mean? Well, you used to work out the average of 6 days a week. Now maybe you may do 5 in good periods and 4 in others. Technically, 4 is, the white folks say, the best way to work. You work out for, or if you're a runner, they say you have to run at least 3 times a week to be a runner. And the best is 4 times a week. That means you run one day, give your body a chance to rest, and it's healthy, you know. So that stuff changes. I remember when I got married, one of the brothers said, bet you're not lifting weights and running like you used to. I said, of course I am. They expected that if I get married, then I would do something else. I said, no. They didn't realize that's part of my makeup. Now, I don't do what I used to, running marathons and all that, but I go and I walk in here. I was right out there walking in the trail yesterday. After we finish here, I'll either go walk, just a pinch of running, and then lift a little iron, or at least I'll do one of them, you know, and I do that at least 5 times a week, you know, okay. The point is, those old things on discipline, if you read all of our old As-Sabiquns, the words you'll find is discipline, self-control, endurance, you know. sometimes they're all right there in the back talking. That's what those. The stuff is good, but it's leaving out where the world is now. What I'm saying is, we need motivational speakers to evolve one more step so they will make the talk that we're talking about okay. It would make that the goals for success is joining the Earth Liberation Movement and helping clean up their, you know what I'm saying? That type of thing, which is more spiritual over material. So this is the thing that we're encouraging. And we see that this thing, everything that we're talking about, why? Because those are the things that are needed to get the world to where our vision is. Not that when we say our vision, we mean a piece of the global vision. We only want our part of the vision. But our part of the vision is where the earth is like what Allah gave it to us. Everything transcends and nothing dies. It just transforms from solid to energy, and energy back to mass, and on and on. The earth is like that. Water, H2O, liquid, sun, take it up. Microwaves call it a gas type something. Take it up. It could come down as a solid, as sleet, snow, or ice. Those are solids. Right? Or it could come back down as water again. Perfect cycle. Everything cleans itself up. That's the vision we have of the earth. Putting it back the way Allah sent it to us. Right. By the way, not to change the subject, did y'all see that movie? It's an old movie. Not old. It was in the 90s. Some spaceships came from outer space, and they told the people of the world, if you give us your niggas, we'll clean up your whole earth. And to prove it, they turned the Statue of Liberty into gold, and they cleaned up a section of the earth. Anybody ever see that? And they said you have to have a certain amount of melanin, you know what I mean? And in the 90s. In 99, it looks like 94, 95. The guy, Benson, used to be in there. Benson?
Robert Guillaume?
Something like that. It was in the 1990s. They came from, anyway, just keep looking for it. So it was funny because, when they getting ready to zap them up, and they had a vote on the earth for, in the United States, that would they trade all their niggas for, and the white folks voted, yeah. They say, no more welfare lines, no more. So this is what the white folks was cold. And then old Benson was married. His wife was high yellow, and she wanted to go with them. So she'd put black stuff on her face, and the white man that was running this part of the show, he rubbed her face, said, you can't go. And then they snatched the little black girl, the little white girl, the black boy in the family with a white girl. They snatched her out of the car and threw her on the ground and had a pistol to make sure. Did you see what it was?
Cosmic Slop.
Huh? That's what it was. Yeah, you saw that? That's what it was. It was the most ridiculous. I just saw it last night. Well, I just saw a piece of it. I said, what y'all watching? And they said, this is what's going to happen. So anyway, I looked at it the last 15, 20 minutes. So the point is, we can't depend on those spaceships to come and clean up the earth. We can't depend on white folks voting for what's good for the world. But we can depend, never give up on human goodness. Because it's a funny thing, boy. It's funny. You may lose out here in 99 times. But every now and then, human goodness will come through. But there is human goodness, I'm telling you. You can see it. There's a commercial on about the animals, you know, that they mistreat, you know, and they show them sad puppy behind all. And I was thinking, they ought to show niggas like that. They ought to show, no, they're true. They ought to show, oh, this poor nigga kid, he didn't have no mom and daddy, he was raised in the street, and now the niggas and ready to do life in prison without possibility, and the niggas should be sitting there looking pitiful. That would be it. Why not do that? They do it for animals. The poor animals didn't do nothing to get there, and the nigga he didn't have no control over nothing. He just,
They're doing it for white people right now.
Oh, of course. Opiates, yeah, oh, that's a, well, opiate is not like to put all those criminals away back in the 90s and low down kingpins and rotten niggas. But now, you see, what you don't understand is, it's a sickness. It could be treated, and you could treat sicknesses. What niggas had wasn't a sickness, it's just bad. They're just bad. They're
actually thinking about legalizing like small quantities of cocaine
yes.
in Oregon and providing, you know, high quality.
Yeah.
They're actually
Yeah.
talking about this.
Yeah.
I mean, it had to be over 5 or 6.
No, we've been talking about it for years. Here's why. If you want to solve America's problem, not Muslim problem, but America's problems, you can't have drugs illegal. You can't. And white folks know that. See, back in Prohibition, it was illegal to drink alcohol, right? So that produced crime. Before that, the only crime they had in America was prostitution and gambling. But it was small time. When they brought alcohol in, and Chicago's right up there next to Canada, man, Al Capone, he was making $720,000 per week. That's like $720 million now of alcohol. Big gangsters now all over. When Roosevelt, when he found out in 32, he said, I'm gonna come in, we're gonna make alcohol legal again. He won the election. And then, but crime had gotten big already, right? So you couldn't get rid of mafia anymore because they didn't move in the unions, they everywhere, right? So they knew with these drugs, we're gonna use these drugs to kill the movement, and we're gonna need niggas like ourselves to help them, which we did. But that's gonna give us the wherewithal when we wanna kick doors in and we wanna destroy civil liberties. We can declare high crime neighborhoods. In those high crime neighborhoods, which is ours, right? The laws at a different standard. The threshold for illegal searches and seizures is less because it's a high crime neighborhood. And they got the books. 80% of all crime in America is drug-related crime. They already know that. That's what they teach. They teach that in the schools and criminology. 80%. So, if we want to have a better America, we have to have better people so we have to cut the throat of the police that have illegal searches and seizures, and you have to have, when you have drugs as illegal in a society where people are going to use them anyway, Society cannot progress. It can't go anywhere. We can't have a new world if drugs is illegal and everybody, but if you got them legal, they be just like Ray Charles. If he got enough money to buy heroin, he can sing and do everything he wants. So you make heroin legal. You make cocaine legal. In a good quality, you have the kind niggas lack and the kind white folks lack. You just have it. It's legal. And it costs you $1 for a little packet. Because if it's legal, it's just like them little things of salt they give away free at the McDonald's and everything. Okay, you have a little package that size, it costs you $1. And you can take 4 or 5 hits off of that. That'll get you. Or a little other bag, $1.50. The most expensive drug should be $1.50 or $2 for your daily uses. Same as coffee. Yeah, just like a coffee habit, it shouldn't be no more than your coffee habit. If they're free everywhere and the quality is good, and they shouldn't give it to pharmacies to sell, they should give it to Negroes to sell. This is I knew since y'all been doing this all the time, but now we're gonna package it all and we're gonna give it to you at a nice price. And just think about it now, all the marijuana sellers are rich white kids. There's about 2 or 3, one Negro was saying, I wanna get my stuff together where I said, man, I started dealing smoke because it's illegal. As soon as they make it legal, they don't want us to sell it anymore. It's ridiculous. So that's one of the things we want the niggas to be able to sell high quality heroin. And you can't buy it out of the package. If it's out of the package, you won't buy it. Yeah, now niggas could try to find out how to dilute it, but if you make it where they can make enough money, double their money, they'll go on and keep it. But anytime the pack is open, you won't. Everybody know, don't buy that. It's not any good. You don't want no. Give me a package that's sealed, and you look at it with a microscope. Make sure. Yeah. Okay, but anyway, unlimited access. We had here nobody wants to fight the white man, and then exceptions. There is people that want to fight, that do. We're not the only ones. It's just that they try to engineer it where we think that we're the only ones. It ain't like that. There's a worldwide revival. And the course of history is headed in that direction. Collective consciousness, collectiveness. Pretty soon, fighting the war, it'll be like fighting the Vietnam War or anything like that. It'll be that popular. No, that's where we're headed. And we're just getting out first. We don't care whether we're on the front line, on the back line, or who gets, attention for it, Good leadership real good leadership shows itself in bad times, not good times. Because when things are good, everybody, it's happy days here again. New course, resistance training. We'll talk about that. Alternative resistance training, online, possibility training, visioneering, a visionary process. Introduce this generation to the dream, the impossible dream. We always say Star Trekism. But we want to put a little advertisement in it, like we did in Juma the other day. If you want adventure, join us. If you want drama, if you want excitement, if you want action, right? Hey, everybody's sitting at home, just think of them now. They ain't got no drama. They got drama. Who's going with whose wife or husband, who lost something or other, right? But there's not, if you want real drama and suspense, you get involved in this. Just think, I think it's going to sell like I don't know what. Yeah, they can sell anything they want. We're selling movement. That's the kind of, because the stuff we got to do is going to take a lot of people, and they're going to join for many reasons. But if we want them, if you're bored to death sitting in your house, join us. You won't be bored too long. You won't be bored. Boss man ain't putting up with no boredom unless you work for him. If you work for him, boss man got it down. You do the same thing over and over and over again. They say you work for the white man, you'll get 1 year experience 30 times. Right. But if you work for yourself, you'll get 1 year experience 30 times. 30 times over. Reach out. They're out there by the millions. Revolutionaries, evolutionaries, had enoughers, people that just had enough. We didn't have enough. This is more than life has to offer. New Worlders, collective consciousness. And I just said it was the worst of time, it was the best of time. Spring Offensive 2021. When everything thaw out, Spring Offensive, I was thinking Spring Offensive. That pole out there, it cost $6,500 to bring the electricity in here. I don't know if you remember. It was scheduled to come in on the 27th of November, and Mr. Anderson was his name. He stalled until March 20th. Boy, that was a cold winter. Do you remember that winter when we would be sitting here? Man, you just be blowing cold. Good God Almighty. Man, we tried this is a big building when it's cold. It gets cold, 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 I'm telling you. Anyway, Spring Offensive. Focus, constancy. That's something we have here. Let them walk away. The gift of goodbye. Everybody this is for anybody, one of the speakers, what was his name? Anthony Robinson. He said he was counseling this lady, something about her boyfriend, or she said, don't build up all the, it ain't you, unless it is you. You don't need nobody telling you how good you look, or how, how smart you are. You get addicted to that stuff. People do. That's why a lot of ladies like the word, I adore you. When you look at the Spanish dictionary, you know what adoration means? Worship. So I adore you. I worship you. Sisters, I didn't mean that technically, but I'm just saying, don't worry about a thing. I'm on your side. I'm with you. Don't worry about it. Imam Musa haven't went bad. He's a good guy. I will say, when I came here, boy, the sisters got on the hotline. They came from Gaithersburg, and they was in D.C., and they wanted to make me do something. I wouldn't do it. Boy, they got the hotline. They was, because you can't get around everybody. Boy, I said, them girls, they not here anymore. Boy, they had the hotline on the brother, and it was serious. But still, we didn't crack with the white man. We didn't crack with the sisters. We said, hey, we just going. But anyway, we said it earlier, we've been left more than anybody we know, right? And it don't hurt the people that left. Where are they? They're sitting around somewhere. They got another assignment. Whatever it is, It don't have nothing to do with us, right? Let them go. As Anthony Robinson said, you let them go and then say next. You know, the next guys, that's not Islam, of course. But they're saying next. You know, in other words, who's ever, that's, you know, talking to a lady saying, it's a whole world of people out there. Okay. So the gift of goodbye, it's a gift. It actually is a gift. If you've been raised for a mission, you know, and people don't want to play a part in that, and you know you're honest and upright and all of that, then if they leave, they leave. Right? They abandon themselves. They don't abandon you. It's not that old time stuff. I don't need you. It's not that. It's saying there's too many people in the world that want to do something. It's just they don't have access to it. There's no advertisement on TV and no. So the people, some people jump on the internet and it go viral and they have 200,000-300,000 followers in 10 minutes for foolishness. But they don't have it for this right here, right? Not yet. We got to pull that off. Daesh, well, they say Daesh and ISIS and all of them have websites. Those are police websites. If police surround us all the time, what do you think they would do if you put up a website saying, we want you to come over here and kill white folks and do this, that, and right? You get 100 people, you'd have 98 the police, definitely.
That's what they did with the brother. They labeled him the internety man.
That's right, Al-Laki, that was cold. They killed him and his son, right? Man, that's cold. Anyway, could you, just a little heat. I'm trying to tell you, we are researching everything we can. And I believe that Allah just got us here for this period of time, and people talk about success and failures, but there's no failure in what we're doing. It's not any failure. Because remember, suppose we want to do this stuff. Okay, we get one good deed just for wanting to do it, right? We may get 700 good deeds, or I don't know how many, if we do it. So we can't lose. Failure is when you just lose. But there's no loss for us. In fact, in failure itself, the best educator you'll ever get is failure. Try something and miss. And I think this is, if we've been raised for a certain mission, I think this is the time to get in shape for the mission. Actually, that's what we're doing. Getting in a little shape, getting it up a little earlier, doing certain things, and then, bam, it's all kicking in. Okay, are there any questions or comments so far?
Yeah, I had a question. How do you maintain your attitude in the face of the FBI, CIA, NSA, Mossad, and
Others?
yeah, others, right?
Yeah. Well, the word attitude, you know, attitude means how, in aviation, how you're leaning, how the plane is leaning according to the horizon. That's attitude. If you stand up like this, ready to fight, you got an attitude. It's called attitude. Okay, one of the first things that we learned was about attitude. They got flyers that say attitude determines your altitude, all of that stuff. But attitude, how you see things, how you accept things. And really, it's not what happens to you, it's how you accept everything. Everything that happens to us, we look at it as a blessing. And we're going to turn it into a blessing. Whatever the system do to us, the FBI, the NSA, all of them, Homeland Security, it don't make no difference. We're going to change that. Our attitude is we're going to change that to a benefit. Therefore, we tie their hands. There's nothing they can do to us. Well, we're a Muslim. Suppose you get, well, they finish you off. I said, well, let you get married. Shoot, I don't mean I'd go straight. You want to go straight to heaven? You don't believe in that? That's what I believe in. If they finish the brother off, straight. Except money I owe. Just so happens I don't know anybody that I owe anything to. So, hey, man, you know. And then if we have friends, they'll do like Abu Bakr stood up in the masjid when the Prophet ﷺ passed, say, anybody Imam Musa owe money to, gotta watch that here though. I'll take care of that, you know what I mean? Make them show something, I mean, just, well, you gotta, what you got, not that I want you to prove it, because I believe you. But the people are different than during the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him. So anyway, attitude has everything to do with how you are, how you carry yourself, how you accept things that happen to you. The reason most people don't handle these things right, because they have, let's call it a bad attitude. They misperceive things. They want certain things to happen to them, and those are called good. They want other things not to happen to them, and they're labeled bad. Your attitude is to change that all around. If good happens to you, right, you're just happy as you can be, and you say that's fine. If bad happens to you, you face the challenge, and you grow and you develop, which is the hadith, of course, right? You grow and develop. So that's only true for a Muslim, that nothing bad can happen to you. There's no such thing as bad or good. It's either the will of Allah, mashallah, and that type of thing. Everything that happens to you is for a reason. And remember, everything that happens to us is good. It ain't no bad, especially when you're able to take it and you're able to, it's not able, that's what people talk on this modern stuff. You gotta be strong, you gotta be good. If you're good, people that follow those only strength and durability and all of that, I'll put it this way. A lot of my friends was boxers, and they didn't take nothing from individuals, too much of individuals, but when the government messed with them, they was not accustomed, because they deal with force. I have enough power and force to whoop that nigga. I ain't taking nothing from you. I don't have enough force to deal with the government, right? I don't have one friend that challenges the government. Out of all the physical fighters and all that, and I talked to them about some of the stuff, they're not into it because they got a different picture about themselves and their environment. One of my partners told me, you don't want to take too many headshots. This was 4 or 5 years ago. I said, I'm doing that on purpose because here's what I did. I changed it to psychological warfare. So I'm sticking my head out. Like the fighters in Philadelphia, Matthew Saad, Muhammad and them, they used to stick their head out, they get busted. They could fight good, but they got scar tissue and they wouldn't last no longer 3, 4, 5 years maximum because they taking headshots. You know what I mean? They letting you take a headshot, but they busting you up. But after a while, it costs you. So I told my partner, he's saying you're going to be taking too many headshots, psychological, shots. Now, we used to run in the hills together. He asked me in 1970. We was running in the hills, and he said, do you think people are watching us now? Are we in the woods? I said, yes, definitely. Because I was paranoid, right? I was paranoid. I mean, not even paranoid, sensitive, like you going through all this. So definitely, when you first go through it, yeah, the police is watching. And if the police was up here in the woods 2 weeks before that, and we was all running up in the hills, the park ranger pulls in and the police, and they searching us, not searching us, we want you to ID, and all the brothers were saying that to help them stay away from me, of course. Hey man, we just running in the hills, and the park ranger with the police backing them up want to know who we are and what we doing up here. It's ridiculous. So, but sensitivity. So he asked me, what do you think that there's people up here watching us? I said, of course it is. Hell, I didn't go through all of that, but I know that somebody is paying attention. Then after that, well, that part is a long story. Okay, so attitude. If you have the right attitude, you can endure anything. And it don't be no, like, gritting your teeth. It'd be fun. Because when you change your attitude, you change your environment. That's what I'm saying. Okay, any more questions there?
Based on your experience, what is it that you think the system is trying to produce in you?
Well, you may not believe this now. I think we're getting pretty close to the system, or some people in the system. You get feels. I think we're getting real close to, where we talk about as 10% of the FBI is good people in every, you know what I mean, which is true. So the old system is trying to produce, first isolate you, like any disease, isolate it, cut it off from the rest of the people. So the system always, when we was in little kiddie jails, they always first isolated you. You're a cancer. You're causing disruption amongst everybody. You're a disease. So we have to isolate you. So they isolated and isolated. And then they try to draw a picture of you to yourself. They start naming you. You're incorrigible. You're a bad boy, right? Yeah, they start naming you, and if you go for it, then you're in trouble. If you start accepting their name for you, then you're in trouble. The next thing is they try to produce all kind of things, like fear, and with me, they're trying to run the clock out, but I'm running the clock out on them. They're trying to produce, the age factor. Okay, if I tried with 3 or 4 times and nobody helped, maybe you get a little lazy, and you'll pretend to yourself to be moving forward, but you'll be burnt out. They try that. They definitely trying that one. Because I know one of the agents come in, they said, I told them the FBI told me something or other. What did they tell me? Oh, they told me whatever they told me. Then they said, I was telling him what they had said. He said, well, maybe, now I've been knowing this guy for a good 40 years, because we used to run in the hills when I was talking about them Sudanese brothers. Shh. We ran marathons together every Saturday. Well, during the week, we would go in the hills and run. And they could run. You know, I couldn't run like they could. They could run. They could really run. So I know the guy. He said maybe you're getting older and maybe they think that, you know, what he was trying to say, maybe you don't have the fight you had before and, you know, maybe that type of thing. That ain't going to happen because as you get older, you get, first of all, I look forward to getting old. I was looking forward to 75. I was 73, it's fine. But when I was 75, I said, boy, look at here. You know, to me, that was nice. I look forward to getting older. And so that means I'm getting closer to 100, you know. Yeah, and that's the way I'm focused. So I'm getting happier and happier the older I get. But they're trying to produce an attitude where you're despondent and sad at the world and what people do. That's why I always let everybody know, oh, never lose hope in humanity. Never lose hope in humanity. Because if you lose hope in humanity, you'll do like everybody else and get rich. You know, everybody else, whether it's 50 Cent or whoever, he tried to help a lot of niggas on the way up, and they all cut his throat. That's just a rule. Maybe not everybody, but I'd say 85 out of 100 cut his throat. He tried to loan one guy money to help him get his little T-shirt business going, something, you know, whatever it is. And he didn't pay him back, or he run off, you know what I mean. Some old girlfriend maybe did something or other, was going with somebody else and tried to lock into him, and, you know, anything. You don't know what they went through. But by the time they get up there, they have a certain attitude. We're not going to do that. If you notice, we have not done that. In fact, if I were to talk about things that we're happy about, is that we have never lost hope, number one, in Allah. See, because all the stuff that's happening, it's a training program for you that Allah done put all this stuff together, right? And it has natural laws. The natural laws are the more opposition you face, the bigger you become, the better you become, and the smarter, all of those things. But you don't want to become evil like most of the people do. And they lose heart in people. They're not happy with people. And they don't trust people that much. You know, okay, so that's what the system is trying to produce. That's not all, it's many things. They're doing their own psychological warfare. And they got more experience at it, well, we use it against them. They have tons of psychological warfare experience, and it works on 95, 98, 99% of the people. It haven't worked on us. It haven't worked on us. It just have not worked on us. We're better at psychological warfare than they are. Counter-psychological warfare. We call it psychodegradable, remember? The SHIT, the stuff they throw at us, we're going to snatch it and turn it into fertilizer. That's just the way of thinking. You see what I mean? That's what's going to win over. So when we execute power and authority, it will be with kindness, compassion, and friendship instead of dictatorial. We're not going to let them make us out of a dictator or mean or mad at people. as one of my friends, not one of them, they always fought the last war fight, this time. And you could tell that they didn't like people anymore. They didn't like people. They just didn't like, especially black people. They might be working on behalf of black people, with black people, but they didn't like them anymore. I remember I asked about in Atlanta in 1981, they was killing a lot of black kids down there. And one of the people got killed was over 200 and some pounds. And the guy they arrested was a little chubby guy. You remember the little guy there? And they say he had lifted this dead weight, which is one, and throw him in the Chattahoochee River over the bridge. I said, that nigga ain't threw nobody in no water, just two. So I asked the brothers down there, I said, how they dealing with the brother? He said, the brother? So I looked at him, I said, y'all accepting what the white man say about us? And these are big people, but they had experiences with their people, and the people they feel let them down, and they never forget it. They never forgot it, and we're not like that. The people do what they do because they're people. So I told my son, I close with this, not close, but I said, if you kill every nigga because he's a nigga, you ain't gonna have hardly nobody around anymore. Because you can't stop them. There is no way to stop them. Italian mafia tried to kill a lot of niggas, maybe change their habits. The white man been trying to kill niggas ever since the white man. He haven't changed nobody's behavior yet, right? And he been killing and lynching and stretching the neck of Negroes and stealing his crops. Good God Almighty, and he haven't changed him yet. Are there any more questions or comments? Anything on the?
This brother's giving us a long, that's all.
All right. Yes.
And this can fall under attitude as well, and of course, having faith in Allah. But as far as you being able to, as far as you being able to keep your composure and not overreact with certain things pertaining to like things that they may do to your family, money, your funds and things like that.
Well, they don't may do, they do that to everybody. But here's what, I'll start with my sons. I'm guessing now they're around, at that time, let's say my youngest son was around 12. We went up to Oregon and Washington to raise funds for the masjid before we even bought it. Had we bought it yet? No, we hadn't bought it. And, in Oregon at that time, it's fresh water everywhere. So I had two Iranian brothers with us, and we would stop by the stream, and we would swim in the water. We would just swim like you did in the country. And I looked at my son, Dad, I said, Oakland, he's a little hard-headed nigga, and out here, he's just a kid. So you're thinking about environment. He went in a store. It was in Corvallis, Oregon, a university town. He said, Dad, the white woman left me in the store and she went in the back walking around. They would never do that in the city. And then walking around, he said, Dad, all these cars are open. That was then. This is 1981, something like that. And you see the sunroofs open, and I said, yeah, well, that's the environment. But I told both my sons at that time, because the father feels like a protector, and my sons lived with me in the masjid, just like it said on the thing, they lived and they helped me do the work. And they picked up on everything was going on, and they got sharp. So the white man now got to get rid of them. So they starting to mess with them. So I told them what I told them was, and I asked them if they remember, they still remember. I said, the system is doing the same thing to you that they do to the Soviet Union. And you know, the only way you can beat that is you live just like me. You know, they wasn't even thinking about that. They couldn't because they don't have the experience. So what they did with them, I could tell my oldest son when he was 17, he was messing around a little bit. He said, yeah, Dad, there can't nothing happen to me. I'm too smart and all that. I said, you're too smart. So I thought right away some little nappy-headed girl is telling them that. Because Negroes don't talk like that. Ooh, you're smart. Ooh, you cute, you this and that. There's a little police girl. Yeah, telling them that. So I knew what they was up against. We was up against so much. One time they arrested one of them, and it's a little spot around there, so I got, at least they say, I got a shotgun and rode around there real quick. But there's a snitch in the masjid with me, so he told them, this guy is coming to get somebody. And when I got there, the police was speeding off. I couldn't catch him if I wanted to. So with my sons, it was deep, and both of my sons told me the same thing. They said, Dad, we got a photo album with dead people in it. I say, you mean, is a little guy dead that when we went over to Angel Island in the 6th grade in 77, we took my oldest son class over to Angel Island for the little picnic they have when they graduate. And this little guy had a big natural and he used to turn flips, you know, with nothing. I said, and I got him in there, I got a picture of it, I got it right now, of him turning a flip. I says, he dead too? He said, yes. Then my youngest son, now when I say oldest and youngest, my oldest son is now 55, and my youngest son is now 52. Okay. What I realized at least 10 years ago, and I gave a lecture or two on it, the police idea was to keep them away from me. But what they had done is they saved their life. You got to remember the period. The numbers, what they was doing every day is no way they growing up in the 80s and the 90s. And they just, the kids didn't live, they didn't, you know, think about around here, what it looked like in the 90s, rest in peace and all that. You couldn't live, so the police saved their lives by putting them in prison to keep them away from me. So for that, I'm happy because I prayed to Allah, oh Allah, keep them alive till they know us. And that's all I got. That's what I got. That's exactly what I prayed for is exactly what I got. Okay. So now, with others, with the whole family, I'll put it this way. With my whole family, when I get this little piece of money out there, I'm going to hook them all up because they were all involved. Just like my son is saying in the court, we was in the masjid, we helped do this, we helped do that. They did. They helped do all of that. So the system worked on all of my family. Do you remember just 3-4 months ago, we doing all those programs with my great nephew? Yeah. He's gung-ho, right? Yeah. Then after that, no more calls. I knew that from the Jump Street. That's the way it is, right? That's the way it is. That means the government went to everybody in my family and studied what can we do to him. with him. I don't know if y'all remember the Keisha Cole show. Keisha Cole? Keisha Cole is from Oakland. He was in on that. The government gave him, they put him in with the people in Atlanta, the Black Network, and they made him big. And that's what he do. So now he has a nice big house down there, what have you, and that's the life. That's what they gave him. Until I talked to him, or talked to all of them together, that's what they do. Okay, so the point is it how do I keep my composure? That's been happening. A system has so much power that it can make people do what they don't want to do. I don't have a hadith. Remember me reading a hadith last week, 2 weeks ago, about forgiving people who are forced to do things they don't want to do? That's a hadith. Okay. So in my case, it's specific. I have specific relatives, right? And at first, in the first years, shoot, my relatives, when I was on the run and used to do that, they would help me all kind of ways. My family. So the system looked, they said, this nigga's supported by a good family network. So they got to attack them, right? So they attacked them. And they attacked them over, you remember now, it's not like 1 week or 2 months or 2 years. They have 40 years. Some didn't crack till 10 years ago. Some it was 20 years ago. But they got all of that time to work. You see what I mean? That's what they have done, and that's where they lost. Because it's going to take all of 2 minutes, at least 2 minutes, for me to look at a relative I've known all my life and figure by their behavior and their attitude and everything about who they are, right, where they're coming from. And it takes that long. It takes 2 minutes to figure it out. It takes 2 minutes. All of that goes to our credit. That's good. It makes other people sad and mad and, oh, you turned on me. No, absolutely not. You did a good job. People, that's why government is so important. It could bring the good out of people, and it didn't bring the bad out of people. And all they do is they try to get you to do 1 or 2 little things. Then after you do those 1 or 2 little things, now they got you, because they're hinting that it's a veiled threat that we'll let so-and-so know that you did this or you did that. You know, and they're not going to take it well. It's not so with me. I take it very well, and also you use it for the good. Number 1, we just want y'all to help us to keep him alive. See, he's messing with those bad Iranians, those bad Hezbollahis, those bad Muslims. You know, all my relatives are Christians, except my sons. Those bad Muslims. And, you know, they just watch TV, so they just think, you know. And therefore, you know how your uncle is, and you know how determined he is, and we want to help keep him alive. And we want you to help us keep him alive by keeping him out of trouble. Sounds pretty good. And that's a little added, just a little money here and there. And they sell them on that. They want to keep you alive, like my daughter's down there. They're going to keep everybody around, you know, dies around this guy. That's why I said I don't believe my grandson is dead. Why? Because of the way he was acting. Remember the senior snitch type thing? Well, with my grandson and my other sons, they was acting towards Mukhtar like that. That Mukhtar is the authority. With all of them. Yeah, I could see it, it's clear. It's just like they're deferring with their eyes, they're deferring with this and that, all other stuff they're doing. I need a gun, I need this, and I need that, and here's this. And you could see what it clearly is. What does it do for me? Well, I'm their dear father, their dear uncle, their dear cousin, and therefore, we are going to hurt him. So it's a guaranteed it's safety for me. This is the way I look at it. Yeah. They can't kill the brother. They would feel too guilty. Oh, I have killed my uncle. Oh, they might blurt her out all over. They're not trained to that level. Right? So it's life-saving. Yeah. They can't do nothing to me, and then when I get paid big money, I'm going to get them all. I know y'all, that ain't no problem. They're going to get a section of wealth because they endured what they did. Suppose they endured 10 years. That's a long time to endure the government. Remember, nobody flipped over in 2 days. They had to come back over and over again. And they studied, and remember, the power of the government. They study in each individual. What do they view? What's success? What do they da-da-da-da-da? And then they're going to kick in. One of my relatives wanted to be a FBI agent. And so their reward might be, you do this, you officially on the rolls. Yeah. It's an FBI agent, right? All that kind of stuff. What's everybody's price? I have one relative, a scoundrel. This is a scoundrel. But everybody know that person is a scoundrel. But we're not mad. Nobody's mad. We would just ask all other family members, we would just say, you never watched Amos and Andy, but we would say, you seen the kingfish today? That's who we call. If you've never saw those programs, just watch one and you'll get the idea about, how, anyway, all of this is a great level of gratefulness. It's a big deal because everything that's happening is sweet, but you have to understand the sweetness. And you don't take everything that they do to you in a normal way. That goes back to attitude. When you change your attitude from psycho-degradable and all of that, it's all different. That's why we feel like we're close to Boss Man and some of the people with Boss Man. Because they're realizing, or they have known for years, but they're really realizing, hey, this guy is no threat to us. He wants to help us. Everything he's talking about is America the good. That's why I joined the FBI, because I thought it was America the good. So don't you worry. Remember, everywhere, every place, there's some people that have a certain level of honor. And sometimes it's a low level and you need to build it up till they can make a commitment. Other levels is pretty high. You just have to do the few things that ensure them that you're not, that you're a real good guy, you're not a bad guy with in sheep's clothing or something, whatever it is, right? That you're really that. So we feel very good and confident about the time in which we live in. we also feel that we already have made a contribution to humanity's development. Like whatever came to us, we already told the people what we thought was right. It just so happened that that's the way it came. So we have already done our job to the best, according to what we can understand of Quran, Sunnah, history, and ourselves. We've told everybody and tried to show them. And this time, we're actually showing them that how you can defeat or how you can deal with the system. Now, you got to remember, if you're watching TV or CNN or anything, a whistleblower blows a whistle and they get chewed up, right? Very few of them, it's a happy ending. But see, those whistleblowers have never faced anything, or they wouldn't be scared. Like, you know what I mean? They're just good people that we couldn't stand the waste and the fraud. They are untrained whistleblowers. When they see us, stuff we've been dealing with for 50 years and more, they say, well, we sweetie pies. We sitting up here whining about, and here's a nigger, a real nigger, that make us look like we whining about, I don't have a job anymore. They took my health care. And now I have to work in a little place like this, and we get a few extra $100,000 from this gift group, and we don't feel like ourselves. That ain't nothing. But they're going to see that. They're going to say, wait a minute. See, you know, like all them motiversity, them guys ain't talking about nothing. They ain't never boxed with boss. You could tell the way they're motivating. What they're saying is good and is nice. But they ain't never had to box with boss man. They just never had to box with boss man, that's all. And so we've had the ultimate experience, and the best thing is our faith is intact. Our attitude is intact, and I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Let's call it what everybody else called it, happiness. There's a certain happiness level, and it's there. Ain't nothing you can do about it. It's there. And that's a big deal. So that's what we've been dealing with. And only suggestion we make is just stay close to the Quran and the Sunnah on the highest level. Because if you can institute one or two Quranic ayats and one or two hadith, you'll knock off all of this other stuff. You don't have to be one of these. Oh, absolutely not. I don't have nothing against them. But it's like a parrot. It's like a parrot. And they say we're parrots. I'll give you an example about that. In South Africa, they have Hafiz programs everywhere. And this family, most of the family is Hafiz of Quran. And one of the guys was going to school. In fact, he liked me better than anybody. He went to school in Sacramento. And his mother was saying, well, we have to bring him back here before he loses his Hafiz. Not loses faith, but before he loses his memorization of Quran. And that's why we've always stressed tafsir. If you think, we've stressed here tafsir of Quran and the real meaning of Quran over, in fact, so those would be my suggestions. Are there any more comments or anything? I hope I halfway answered the question. Yeah. But, yeah. That was it? Okay. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. You could turn those things off. are they still gonna have the janaza tomorrow? Tomorrow at 12.